Hey, good morning. Coffee Conversations with Greg J is on over here in the Dream Creator Studio, Long Beach, California, broadcasting to the diaspora. That's what we do right here. Coffee Conversations with Greg J. Sorry for the delay. Got a little connectivity issue with LinkedIn. We're broadcasting on a number of Facebook pages, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And LinkedIn gave us a little fit this morning, but that's okay. We'll post the recorded broadcast so the folks over there on that most excellent platform can enjoy the conversation today. Um, Expatriation, reparations, and the state of the movement is what we're talking about. I want to just kind of welcome our guest on today. You know, back in the day when at the radio station, I would, sit at the feet of this academic, intellectual, struggle veteran, good guy, you know, Professor David Horne. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Greg, and good morning to all of your listeners and watchers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much for coming. I've been, we tried a couple of weeks ago, right as I was getting out of my COVID stupor.
Yeah.
And but now we're here. We're doing our thing. And thank you so much for coming. So much to talk about today. Just want to have casual conversation with you about, the movement. I mean,
Got my
this
coffee.
yes, sir. That's right. That's right. Good stuff. Listen, so all right. I know that, when I've listened to you so many times before, you are an expert on the subject of reparations, And I've been keeping up where in Sacramento, in California, they had the reparations task force, and they've been examining Dr. Shirley Weber, who's now the Secretary of State in California. This is a bill that she has been advancing since she moved into government, state government,
Yeah.
and they've been examining who should get reparations, how it should go, thus and so. Are you familiar with the movement? And then if so, what is your analysis of how they've been going about the business?
I am very familiar with the whole process. By the way, Dr. Weber is not only to be congratulated, she is to be revered. She came up through the African Studies movement. She was a former chair of the Pan African Studies Department at San Diego State, and she basically has been a part of the movement forward for a very long time. So her moving into government was a great idea because she came in prepared to get stuff done.
Mhm.
Now, to get to the immediate question that you asked, she was able to introduce into the California legislature, since she was a part of the legislative Black Caucus, the idea that there should be a study done of the facts and the information available to talk about slavery and its aftermath in California and in the United States. As you well know, Greg, HR 40, the legislative bill that has been in Congress since 1989, when a former congressperson introduced it. They've been trying to get it passed. Well, Dr. Weber said, we don't have to wait on that anymore. We can move from California. We can take California as a state and start that process.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, what is unusual is that California did have slavery, yes, but California slavery was different from virtually any other state. We never picked cotton here. We didn't pull tobacco. We did not chop cane. We did not do the usual slavery activities. slavery in California was essentially connected to gold mining. And when the California Constitution came into being in 1850, it said point blank, slavery is prohibited in California. We never should have had any slavery in California anyway, based on the state constitution. But Southerners brought slaves in here anyway, and because there were always law enforcement people who would look the other way, we ended up still having slaves brought into California. The study, the reparations commission, the state reparations commission, which consists of 9 people appointed by various public entities. You know, the speaker of the assembly, the governor, etc. That 9-person committee has been working for the last 2 years to try to put some order into the whole process. Lately, in fact, 2 months ago, that commission, that state commission, put out into the public this 500-page report that had been done for the commission by the state staff, the paid state staff. That report, that 500-page report, laid out for the first time in the history of the reparations movement that here are the harms, here are the things that were done to African Americans, here are the things that we are saying reparations is due for. We're not talking about something vague, you know, that you basically didn't like me, you basically beat up my family or lynched my family. All of those things are important. But here is a listing of the things that we said have to be dealt with, have to be handled. It is not a perfect document, but it is the most comprehensive document in the history of the reparations movement. Again, laying out, these are the things we said have to be dealt with. Here are the harms, here are the things that are wrong. For example, Greg, and I'll stop here. In California, the major problem outside of Jim Crowism and racial prejudice and putting people into prisons on an irregular basis, the major problem in California has been housing. African Americans have had property stolen from them. They have been prohibited from moving into certain neighborhoods. They have had this redlining going on continuously to keep African Americans from decent housing. Some kind of way we have to work out a process of compensation or a process of dealing with that. Very last point. The State Reparations Commission has 1 year left in its assignment. Between now and June of 2023, the State Reparations Commission is supposed to lay out a plan, a reparations plan. How do you compensate? How do you deal with all of these harms that have been identified? And that report that they are supposed to produce by June of 2023 then has to go back to the California legislature, then has to be go through the regular contours of state government and be passed as legislation and signed by the governor to handle reparations in California. And that will become the foundation for HR 40 in the rest of the country. The California plan, the California reparations plan, will become the basically the foundation for everybody else to work on theirs.
Wow, that's incredible, and it's interesting you say, so housing and redlining and even, down to the notion of sundown towns across California, all
Exactly.
of that stuff, I was at a wedding reception one time, and a former city in Long Beach, and one of the former city councilmen was there, and we were in downtown Long Beach. And this is actually where our Dream Creator Studio is located. We're in downtown, and there's kind of a notion it's hard to get the brothers and sisters to come out of North Long Beach to come to downtown and enjoy the shoreline or come to some of the events and things that occur down here. But we were at the Museum of Art, and the council member looked at me and he said, "Hey, I remember when we couldn't come down here," and it hit me like a ton of bricks. It's those types of ills. You knew that you didn't cross a certain street or line.
That's right.
Back in the day.
And interestingly enough, even though there are members of the African American community who have no idea what we are talking about in terms of sundown towns, because they never experienced it. They did not grow up in the South. They did not grow up in the Midwest. But you have correctly identified, even in California, so-called Hollywoodized California, the Golden West, there were sundown towns here. And a sundown town, for those of you who may have forgotten or never been taught, by after 5 o'clock, as the sun goes down, your black behind has to be out of here. You could not stay in that organized township or that city after hours. You had to be gone. Your body had to be removed from the property. Actually, there are still 2 or 3 towns or cities in California that tend to act like sundown towns too.
Correct. And they'll also too, I think folks would be surprised, at the cities that are sundown towns: Inglewood, Torrance, Hawthorne. It's very interesting, very, very interesting to know the history of these spaces. And also too, you're talking about the housing. When I worked in a bank, I worked in the foreclosure department, and as we were processing foreclosures, we would have to pull the conditions, covenants, and restrictions paperwork on the property that we were about to take action against. And it would surprise me at how many towns, cities, communities across Southern California had a clause in there that said no Negroes, no Asians, no Mexicans shall invest in a domestic capacity.
That's right.
I was like, what?
If we did a full investigation of all of the cities and communities in California, we will be surprised right now at what we would find. I'm trying to remember. There are at least 2 cities I know. It's not Huntington Beach. I don't want to put a bad reputation out of Huntington Beach, but it's in Orange County. They're in Orange County. And essentially they operate right now as sundown towns. After 5 p.m., before it gets dark, they don't even want Latinos, in the area. You can't even be there working. Before it gets dark, anything tan or brown has to be out of the city limits. The police patrol the areas, making sure there are no darkies around. Again, you would think in 2022 that whole process would be completely dead, but because it is a tradition, there are still a few cities and towns that are continuing that activity. It's crazy. And again, in the report, that should be dealt with.
I agree with that 100%. Wow, the struggle continues.
The struggle continues. That's right.
Yes. All right. So, last time you were with us, we did have a few technical difficulties. However, you did, as they say, you did spit some knowledge there when you said, hey, you know what, in these days and time, what we're experiencing in 2022, it would be wise for African Americans to at least consider moving to Africa.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about that. Expatriation. What's your feeling?
Okay, let me start with the long view and come back up to modern times. in the 1920s, Marcus Garvey, who along with Amy Ashwood Garvey, a couple of other people, created this organization called the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League. Created this this continuing argument that African Americans were not an inferior race. They were not in some way cursed to be here. No matter what white people said, no matter how many riots white folks had to harm and to terrorize black folk, African Americans did not have anything to be ashamed of. They were the first people on earth. They were the ones who brought civilization to the world. Africans had a glorious history, not a history that started in Mississippi, Alabama. In terms of his argument, African Americans, those in the Caribbean, those in South America, those in Latin America, those in Central America, they should remember that they came from great people and that they needed to reestablish their connection with Africa. That would help wherever else we lived. If we wanted to stay in Brazil, if we wanted to stay in New York, fine. But make sure that you are connected to an African presence that is getting better, that is being developed. Africa will be the giant again in the world, and we need to be connected to that. Going from the 1920s, and by the way, August 31st is coming, and Marcus Garvey established that he didn't do it by himself. There were 25,000 people who attended the first UNIA convention in Harlem, New York, and they established that August 31st is the International African Independence Day. That should be our real holiday, August 31st. Anyway, in terms of moving from Garvey pushing that idea to right now, Pan-Africanism is alive, it's growing. It is, we all remember how we felt when we went to see a Black Panther in the movies and that whole Wakanda thing, reconnecting African folk. There is a movement in this country for non-resident Africans, that is, Africans who don't now live on the continent, to be reconnected to the development of Africa, the 55 countries, and to an eventual United African States. One big, giant African entity. We have to make sure that we are accounted for and that we help to build that, Africans wherever they are. And that is a growing movement. It is significant. You have all kinds of developments along the line, along the way. And there is this continuing movement about African folk moving back to the continent right now. Part of the problem with the movement back to the continent, the return to Africa, the whole idea that we are reestablishing ourselves in a home base. Part of the problem right now is the government bureaucracy, so that when Africans from Nicaragua, Africans from New York, Africans from Florida, when we move back to certain parts of Africa, after 30 days, actually 3 months, we have to go back to the administration and get our paperwork. We have to sometimes leave the country to get our visas and our paperwork straight to be able to come back. So there is right now too much paperwork interference in the right to return process. But the right to return is ongoing, and we are building a capacity for Africans wherever they are, Africans who don't live on the continent, to be able to come back with all of their skills and all of their talents and attributes to help build the Africa in the future that we need. The last point on this, Ghana, which 2 years ago made a big effort to invite those in the diaspora, those Africans living outside of Africa, to come back to visit Africa to see what's going on. Ghana not only successfully did that, I mean, they made a lot of money bringing Africans in. Ghana right now is the primary African country that has created a process through which Africans not living on the continent, say living here in the United States, can move back to the continent and get citizenship, get dual citizenship. You continue or you maintain your United States citizenship and your with your passport, etc. But you also get a second one. You also become a Ghanaian citizen, so that you, this whole idea of this duality, the duality of your citizenship paperwork. You don't give up one in order to get the other. You have both. That is really the crux of what we are pushing. That's really the crux of the right to return idea, and it's getting bigger and bigger as we speak.
You know, it's that's a really a powerful notion. And last December we went to Ghana. You know, I've been organizing tour groups to go to South Africa since 2010. You know, we've been going for the Cape Town Jazz Festival and all of that. And the brothers and sisters that travel with me are always overwhelmed with, you know, the cities, the cosmopolitan, you know, because we are brainwashed here in America on what Africa really is, right?
Exactly.
And so last December, though, I went with Dr. Arikana Chiomborikwa to the Wakanda One City of Return Trade Expo. So she
very important sister, very important.
Yeah, she's been on Coffee Conversations with us a few times, and so we traveled with her. It's so funny. She came and she announced the trip here on Coffee Conversations, and we even hosted her here in Long Beach up at the African American Cultural Center. Dream Creator Studio brought her here to Long Beach to speak to the people and talk about the Wakanda City of Return. And, you know, at the time I was looking at my pennies and I was like, well, I can't really make it. But the more we went on, it was like, you know what, let us just go ahead, sacrifice and go.
Yeah.
That's what we did. And it was the most profound experience ever. I have a short form documentary about our experience on the day we went to the Asin Manso slave market and the last bath and the, you know, ending up with a candlelight vigil at the Cape Coast slave dungeons. You know, but it affects us so in everything that you just stated, that we are actually going to go back and we're going to reside for more than a month to just kind of see, okay, what's it like to be, you know, what's it like to go to the store and go, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, what is it like?
A lot of what you will find is that black people are black people wherever they are in the world.
Yeah.
And you will find some great, honest people who will endear themselves to you. They want to help you. They want to work with you. And you'll find some jerks. Mm-hmm. You're going to find, but one thing I almost guarantee, and you've already been there, so it won't be a first-time experience for you. But for a number of people coming back to the continent, getting off the plane, feeling your feet on that hallowed ground, feeling your feet on the ground that belongs to black people, that is a transformative experience. If you remember, Greg, when President Obama went to Ghana, and he experienced what I know you experienced too when you went to Ghana. We all went to the slave castles, and what they tend to do as they are explaining the history of the castles, they will lock you up. They will close the door in the slave castles for only for a few seconds. You know, they don't do it mainly. They don't do it for more than 30 seconds to a minute. It frightens the hell out of you. I mean, you think about people had to stay in this kind of condition for months at a time. When President Obama, when they did that with President Obama, I remember he had a news conference scheduled right after that experience. He came out of that dungeon, out of that slave dungeon, and the news reporter tried to put the microphone in his face to find out how did he feel. He just brushed it aside. I mean, there are no words to express how you feel.
No words. No words.
We all need to return. We all need to feel our feet on the ground.
Yeah. I still don't have the word yet to
It's transformative.
describe that whole experience. And people who want to, debate critical race theory and all that, your white friends and all that, they'll be like, they don't want to feel bad. But the thing of it is, it happened.
It happens, right?
Yeah.
And it's continuing to happen.
Yes.
And they still don't want to take any ownership of what they have done to help to create the situation that we now have. Mm-hmm. And that's why, again, we need to expand our options. Mm-hmm. If we're going to stay and help build this place and build other places to the level that other people want us to, that's one thing. If we are going to take our talents and our experience and our skills back to Africa and build those countries to where they should be, so that we actually have our proper place in the world again, then we need to do that. But other people really, what their opinion is on that fundamental issue with us does not really matter. It's something that we have to come to terms with. I am African. I will always be African, and there's nobody who can take that away from me.
Facts. And then for those of us that may be looking at this broadcast and contemplating the words you just spoke, okay, so you want to stay in LA or whatever, but you can do that, but you can build commerce, because after all, we are a global society now. You have the internet.
That's right.
And so study the make connections over there on the continent via the internet or whatever it is, and then study the different industries that you can participate in. What we've been doing here at Hannibal Media Group Dream Creator Studio is we import coffee from Cameroon, and we are part of a collective of Black folks who purchase from a collective of small farmers in the mountains of Cameroon, and we're bringing tons of premium coffee beans out of the mountains of Cameroon, and and then bringing them to you here in the Americas. The same. We want to go to Ghana this time and explore the cocoa farms.
There you go.
Did you all know that when you go to your favorite chocolate shop and they say there's Swiss chocolate, Belgium chocolate, all that? No, the beans come from Africa. That's right. A fact. Yes, right. Yes. So we want to explore those.
And because you just mentioned that, Greg, part of what we can bring to the table from our experiences here is how do we take more control of the resources that come straight out of Africa without the cocoa beans, particularly from West Africa, from Ghana, from Niger, from Senegal. Without the cocoa beans from West Africa, there is no chocolate. All of that chocolate candy that Europeans love, they absolutely love chocolate. They would have no chocolate were it not for the cocoa beans that come out of Africa. But Africans do not control the prices or the current production level of that cocoa product. We have most of the ingredients that have to go into making a cell phone, computers. All of those elements come straight out of Africa. Without the African contribution to the world, we would be still close to the 19th century. African products make the world go around. The problem is, in most instances, Africans do not control all of those products. Gold, for example, most of the gold in the world, 90% of the gold in the world comes out of Africa. It's always come out of Africa. That's why Europeans came to Africa in the first place, looking for gold.
Yeah, and a matter of fact, Ghana was called the Gold Coast.
That's right.
It's
That's right.
interesting. You mentioned the year of return with Ghana, and man, black folks from America everywhere went there and spent a lot of money. Rich
A lot
folks,
of money. That's right.
all our stars, all of our movers and shakers are over there enjoying, Ghana. And so that was 2019, and in 2020, the Ghanaian cedi, their money. Here's one right here. Ta-da.
There you go.
Their money was rated as the best performing foreign currency against the US dollar. The US
Right.
dollar is the main currency of the whole world, right? Now, here in 2023, it is now downgraded, depreciated to junk status, the
Yeah.
worst performing currency. Do you think that aren't world systems at work trying to control or mash down our elevation, our economy that we're building as we go in this Pan-African road?
Partially, yes. Partially, there is an intent and a regular process of trying to downgrade anything that comes out of Africa and African people. But the other part of the issue is it's in the system. The system has been created to reward only those who created the system. Everybody else has to work for the system. So yeah, in a way it's deliberate, and in the other way it's just accidental or incidental. Either way, in this world, you either control your own resources and your own ability to feed and clothe your own people and to make sure you can defend your own territory. You either do all that or you are dealt with by those who will use you for their own purposes.
Mhm.
Part of
Yeah.
part of what we don't have in Africa right now is a united African government. Although we have the African Union working toward that, we don't have a united African government that can protect African societies from outside forces. Sovereignty, which is what the world is based on. If you claim it, you say it's yours, then you have to be able to defend it. If you can't defend it, it's not yours. Africans right now collectively do not yet have the sovereignty of their own resources, over their own resources. And we have to help do something about that, Greg. From our perspective here, from what we know, what we've learned, our talents, our money, our resources, we have to help Africa get to that level.
All right. We're planning a trip also next summer, Dr. Horne. We're going to Panafest in Ghana.
There you go.
And I shared that with you a little bit before. We are
I'll
just
see you
work.
there.
Yeah, we're actually just working out a few kinks in our link with our travel experts, but we should be able to begin to put the link out there if you want to travel with us to go to Panafest. That's a cultural festival. They happen every 2 years, and they haven't done it. COVID's wreaked havoc on everybody, including me. And, but we back. We're still strong, and we're going. So we'll be able to be talking about that really, really soon. We hope you will go with us there, Dr. Horne. I know Brother Carl Nelson wanted to go with us too.
I will be going. The issue will be whether I'll go with you or just see you there. But I will definitely be at Panafest.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's get it. I love
Okay.
it. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Uh, and let me say this one thing too. Since you brought up the issue of COVID, um, there are forces afoot. Some European entities, some American entities. Once COVID became a major issue in harming people in the world, who tried to figure out a way to direct COVID to essentially depopulate Africa, to essentially make the population. Africa right now has over 1 billion people. The Europeans want to, some European companies in particular, want to recolonize the continent because of the resources. Resources are an issue all over the world. They want to recolonize Africa, and COVID seemed to be a perfect vehicle to do that. Clearly, Africans don't have the vaccines. Clearly, Africans don't have the wherewithal and the medical expertise to be able to combat COVID. So they thought COVID was going to wipe Africa out. There was more COVID in LA County than there was in all of Africa. COVID did not wipe out Africa. Africans not only survived, they have thrived.
Isn't that something? Because they certainly did say that a lot of these strains came out of Africa.
Yeah.
That's how the news hit us. They got
Yeah.
this thing now. Was it the one? The new
Monkeypox.
monkeypox. They said that came out of Africa. And you know what's interesting about that statement? So that's the narrative we hear here.
Yeah.
But then when I turn on the news, because I like to listen to African radio stations, I love it. So I'm listening to one of my favorite, and they said, they start talking about monkeypox. They said, well, this is the fourth case that has hit these South Africa, and it's like, wait, they're telling us that it originated there.
Yeah, no,
So
there's a constant battle
Mhm.
against those who want to depreciate, who want to downgrade African people, that want to blame all problems, all real issues in the world on Africa. They've tried to include Africa in the Russia-Ukraine war, saying that the African countries refuse to organize themselves and to vote against Russia in the UN. They refused to take a united stand to condemn Russia, and in some way that was supposed to be bad. African countries are fighting to be able to take care of feeding and clothing and protecting their own people. They don't have time for all of the political shenanigans that the West and other dominant areas tend to think are important. Other people keep talking about what will happen to Africa and what they try to make happen to Africa. Africa will withstand everything. Africa will end up being the dominant power and force in the world that it's supposed to, no matter what other people try to do.
Yeah, I saw Julius Malema, who is
Yes.
the
Yeah.
leader of the opposition party in South Africa. I saw a speech that he said, yeah, the West wants us to stand against Russia. We won't stand against Russia, he said, because when they had the Sharpeville massacre,
Right.
Russia,
In 1960.
yeah, he said Russia, issued sanctions against the apartheid government. The United States did not. And he started laundry listing everything, and he said Russia did this, Russia did that, and the United States did not. And when I saw that, I was like, wow. You would be really surprised when you look at world views from their perspectives.
Exactly. And you hit the nail on the head. From their perspective, we tend to look at situations too much only from one perspective. ours or what the political leaders in this country identify. We must begin to look at the world through the eyes of other people's perspectives. Africans living in Africa do not see the world through one eye, or through one lens. You have been blessed to have been able to go to South Africa a number of times and to interact with the various groups of African folk in South Africa. I wish more of us found a way of visiting different parts of the continent so that we would get this other perspective. We need to be able to see the world through the eyes or understand how other people look at the world. It's not just us.
True, true, true. And Dr. Horne, I've got a new friend. He actually is a graduate of the Fuller Seminary up there in Pasadena.
Okay.
And we were kind of talking, and he shared with me a couple of documents, and he was talking about the current armed struggle in that region. He said, Ethiopia is not. He's from Ethiopia. And Ethiopia has never been colonized by a European power.
Right.
And he started pointing out that in that region, Sudan, East Sudan, all of that, we've been hearing about Somalia, all that we, those countries have been kind of vilified for the armed struggle, or they have quote unquote dictators and everything like that. He said, but what's really happening is that Western powers begin to plant seeds of conflict and these different tribes or factions in those nations begin to fight against one another based on what they were told from the Western powers, and it's all a ruse so that the Western powers can control the minerals resources out there.
Absolutely.
And he was talking about like specifically the coltan in our cell phones, the stuff that that's inside of microchips and all that, because the West needs them now because the consumer demand is so great. Therefore, they have a desire to control the markets, and they're only able to do that by creating strife and stress and misinformation.
The more confused we tend to be, then the more beneficial the West tends to be. They make money from our confusion, from keeping us chasing each other, from having us fight each other over stuff that we really should have settled long ago. The coltan that you mentioned, for example, which is basically only produced in Africa, the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, is the #1 place in the world that coltan is mined. Since that is the very center of the ingredients needed to make computers, cell phones, this entire electronics industry survive and thrive and be profitable, it seems that Africans should be rich because that's what coltan comes from. But like you said, what the West, what the industrialists have decided is to keep them fighting among each other, keep them confused, keep them fighting over nonsense. Then we can keep controlling the resources. It's always been about controlling African resources. Africa is the most resource-rich part of the world. 60 to 65% of what the world will need if we can avoid not killing ourselves in terms of climate change. 60 to 65% of the resources that that the world will need to keep moving forward, to keep modernizing, are all contained in Africa. Those resources that the Chinese are always trying to get, those resources that the English and the Germans and the Americans, everybody is still trying to pull out of Africa what they need. and keep Africans fighting among each other to make sure they don't consolidate to control their own products, their own elements.
You know, this is a abstract lane change based on what you're talking about. You know, we are always here at the Dream Creator Studio talking about got to tell our own story, got to tell our own story. And
Absolutely.
we're very involved in the arts and culture sector. And in that, you know, like me, I'm a narrative artist as a broadcaster, you know, and, you know, Rhonda, super producer Rhonda Love over there, she's a man, digital media artist, a curator, you know, deluxe. And we find ourselves in these different spaces to view plays and movies and everything like that. And so we went to a play the other night that took place in, you know, the setting was apartheid South Africa,
Okay.
sharecropper. Um, you know, without really getting in story, there were a lot of messages there that reawakened trauma in us,
Yep.
you know. And we were saying, you know, we've got to be able to tell our own story. We've got to be able to shape the narrative of who we are as a people. And what you're talking about, you know, is you know, as we express our need to have this bridge to Mother Africa, we need to dispel the myths of Mother Africa so that us
Absolutely.
Americanized folks can survive and thrive and see things from their perspective. How do we, you know, in your view, it's not that we want to counsel white folks for putting on plays and thinking they're doing good for Black folks, but how do we best capture our narrative?
You have already identified the way forward. You've already said this is your talent. You mentioned the talent of two or three other people in the studio. African people are talented people. We've always been talented. We always come forth with ways of expressing ourselves that are sometimes unique, sometimes beautiful, always productive. We have to keep pushing this whole idea about the development of talent in African people, whether it is talent in freehand drawing or beautiful architecture or paintings, composition, musical composition, writing, etc. African people need to push the whole idea that young African people have to be trained, have to be encouraged to develop the talent necessary to tell their part of the story. Our story is many, many layered. There is no one Black story. There is no one African story. We have all kinds of sequences and levels of it, but we each have a part of the story to tell. We need to be developing the youth to tell their part of the story. Whatever talent you have, we have to push that. Whatever talent you may develop later on, we have to push that. We have to push it in each other instead of trying to push each other down. We need to be pushing each other forward. And that means African people, wherever you find them, whether we are talking about those who speak Spanish or those who speak Portuguese or those who speak um, um, Danish or Dutch, African people, wherever we are, we each are part of this bringing together of the stories of African people on this planet. We each have a part of the story to tell. We each have a talent to bring to the table. So, Greg, you and I and any other African American adult, part of our job is to push talent forward when we see it, not try to hold it back, not try to hold it down, push it forward. But we also have a responsibility to speak forth when we see people trying to negate or to bastardize the story of African people. We also have to be able to say, listen, this is not something that makes us proud. This is not something that is really part of the African tradition. You need to back off of this. When people are being profane in terms of African culture, we need to be able to step forward. Otherwise, we need to push youth as far forward as they can with whatever artistic, whatever talent they have. There are millions of African stories. We need to make sure we who know something about this can push young people forward to tell their part of the story.
All right, all right. Great stuff there, Dr. David Horne. Tell the people how they can get a hold of you.
Greg, I'm writing and I'm working on an international Pan-Africanism.
Yeah.
We have a conference coming up in Panama a month from now, talking about Pan-Africanism, and we also are trying to build a library in Liberia. I'll come back on later on and tell you about that in more detail.
All right, yeah, let's go. Hey, put me up on it. I'd love to travel with you on some of those adventures. That's pretty good stuff.
Meanwhile, I'm trying to stay off of social media. It tends to, I won't say waste my time. It tends to occupy much more of my time than I have to spare. I got work to do. Right. So in terms of how to contact me, you can contact www.reparationsinternational.org. That's our website for the 6th Region Diaspora and Caucus. You can contact me that way. Otherwise, they can contact you at the station. You can forward it to me. I'm trying to not be as available as I used to be because I got work to do. I got African work to do.
Understood. All right, y'all. We've got to get out of here. Thank you so much, Dr. David Horne, for joining us. We'll have you back to talk about your adventures in Panama and Liberia and keep this international Pan-Africanism going. Keep the fire going. You all can get this on all of our Facebook pages. Beach City Radio, beachcityradio.com. We're also now on EUR Web. That's what's going on there. And you can also hear the audio podcast at Spreaker, iHeart, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Everybody love one another. Love one another. Thank you, David Horne.
You are quite welcome. Black Lives Matter. African Lives Matter. Africa will retain its proper place in the world. We coming.
Yes. All right, y'all. Peace and blessings.